Could the Buffalo Bills make a trade of a recent semi-high draft pick before the season begins? That's the topic of today's Bills breakdown video from us here at Chat Sports. It centers on Harrison Phillips, the third-round pick previously out of Stanford. Now, Clutch Points pitched this idea, and although I'd be surprised if it went down, I thought it was one worth discussing since there's a lot more trade conversations that happen in NFL front offices than the public normally hears about. Now, Phillips objectively has not played well over the past 2 years. Injury, though, a big factor in that problem. Phillips, by the way, also entering the final year of his contract. Now, Clutch Points said the depth at defense tackle was great. And the top end, I am inclined to somewhat agree with that. I am hyped about Ed Oliver this year. I think we're going to have a major breakout season. But I also don't think it's fair necessarily to say that Vernon Butler and Starlatulele are enough depth. Because Justin Zimmer, Elianaku, Trevon Hester, yeah, those guys have bounced around the NFL. But they aren't great depth options, especially if there's an injury that strikes. So I think what the real battle that's going to come in camp here in the preseason for the Bills is probably one between Phillips and Latulele. Now, he did not play at all last year, but even the last time we saw him in 2019 kind of seemed like age was starting to catch up with him. He was billed as a run stopper in Carolina, and he can still stop the run, but he's not going to bring you much on passing downs. And I thought his impact had started to decline in recent years. Of course, on the flip side, Phillips hasn't been great either. 21 tackles, half a sack, 5 quarterback hits in 15 games over the past 2 years. Remember, I mentioned that the injuries were a factor there for Harrison Phillips. There was more promise and more of an impact back when he was healthy in 2018. Yeah, he had no sacks, and there were only 4 quarterback hits, and that value's still not that great, even though he is more of a run stopper. But he looked more promising. Injuries have very much robbed him of that in recent years. So I would be surprised if the Bills cut Phillips. I still think at worst case he'd be, defensive tackle number 4 on this roster. But maybe a team comes through with a big-time offer. So maybe you get, let's say the 5th round pick. I think that's about the value you'd be able to get for a guy at Phillips with the lifetime on his contract and everything else in there. Again, he hasn't been that impactful. But I think there is still some untapped potential and promise for him. So what would you do if you were GM? Would you trade Harrison Phillips or would you keep him? Let me know what you guys are thinking here. Type T for trade or type in K for keep. As for myself, I'm inclined to keep Phillips this season. I think that there's still some promise, still potential, and for fairly cheap defensive tackle depth, I think he's worth rostering for at least this upcoming season if I, of course, ran the Bills.